Coming up next on All About Android, I'm joined by Pruitt on my left and Matteo Doni on my right. And we have a lot to talk about this week. TCL's rollable phone. Matteo reviews the Oppo Reno 2. Also goes hands-on with 3 Doogee devices. We aim to demystify the current state of 5G. We do our best anyways. The end of Essential. Mobile World Congress is canceled for 2020. Your email and more. So much in this episode of All About Android next. All About Android is brought to you from LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by LegalZoom. Over the past 19 years, LegalZoom has helped more than 2 million Americans start their businesses by incorporating, forming an LLC, and more. Visit LegalZoom.com and enter AAA at checkout for special savings and see how they can help you. And by LastPass. Reused passwords are compromising the security of businesses worldwide. LastPass will ensure that your employees are using passwords securely by generating strong passwords for them. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more. Boom! Welcome to All About Android, episode 460, recorded on Tuesday, February 18th, 2020, your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
I'm Ant Pruitt.
Yeah, in the top. How's it going, Ant?
I am unbelievable. I got to introduce myself on All About Android.
I know.
That's never happened.
It's good to have you here, man. So Ant is sitting in for Florence.
Miss Florence Ion.
By the way, if you did not hear the word, we're not on Twitter or Instagram or anything like that. You did not know that Florence had her little baby girl Mona.
Yes.
So this happened pretty like a couple of days after last week's episode.
It was actually on Valentine's Day, believe it or not.
I think it was the day before Valentine's Day. She tweeted it out on Valentine's Day as a Valentine's Day gift. But yes, it happened the day before. So congratulations to Flo, and it's good to have you here. You're going to be filling in for Flo kind of while she's out for however long that takes her, and she's welcome to take as much time as she needs because this stuff is not easy. We can both speak from experience on that.
I know.
Sitting in for Ron, who is also out this evening, we hope to see Ron again next week, is Matteo Doni. How's it going, Matteo?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Anytime, man. Basically, you send me an email and say, hey, I'm in the area for such and such a date. And I say, okay, great, you're on the show.
Yes, it's great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know. It doesn't look the same. I made this for Ron's shot.
I'm welcoming myself.
Yeah.
I'm practically a local now.
Yeah, when Ron's not on the screen reacting to the goat pictures, it's just not quite the same.
Yeah, it's kind of not going to make it as satisfying.
Although I think it fits the theme, keep it on Matteo's shot. Matteo, go ahead and show your shirt because apparently you're wearing a goat shirt too, which I have no idea how I goat here.
I love it. I love it.
Very nice. You're very on brand. And
Thank you.
That's why we enjoy having you on the show.
Matteo's ears are burning right now as Mr. Ron is cursing at him.
He's like, no!
We can hear his eyes rolling from here.
Yes.
There it is.
Yeah, that's basically Ron at this moment in time.
Holy cow!
We don't even need Ron here.
Victor and everyone on All About Android, thank you for my birthday wishes this year. That really
Happy
made
birthday.
my day.
That's what's up.
It was fantastic.
Belated. But yes, I don't know how you've infiltrated the show even when you're not on it, but you've got some magic, apparently.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. Awesome to have you in the studio, and we've got a lot to talk about. This has been one of those big news weeks. So let's not dance around. Also, Victor, by the way, very happy to have you back.
Thanks.
Nice to see you again. And it's time for you to do the news.
Like I said, it won't be as satisfying without trolling Ron today. So hopefully all this Android news will make it better.
Yeah, it'll smooth out the edges. It's all good. It's all good, but we do miss you, Ron. Android 11 developer preview is not released, but it's probably right around the corner. Apparently, Google updated their developer preview portal over the weekend, and when they did such, they put up details for Android 11 developer preview, and it was not up for very long, I don't think, but it was on the website. And of course, as is the case, people noticed, started taking pictures, snapshots, screenshots, and then Google removed it. So they realized what they'd done. Now it's just hidden with a redirect. There was nothing like downloadable or anything like that. There was no like developer preview that you could flash onto your device, or that would have been neat, but not quite there yet.
Such a tease.
I know. Exactly. Kind of teasing us with the things that we can't have yet. It wouldn't make sense for it to be available quite yet, only because if you remember last year, just using last year as the example, March 13th was when we got the developer preview for Android 10Q.
Makes
so
sense.
It would be a little early. So
Right.
they were probably just, shuffling things around and seeing what things look like. And I don't know how those mistakes actually happen, to be honest, but they seem to happen to a lot of different people, a lot of different businesses. So apparently it's easy. I don't know. You update websites. What do you think?
Sometimes it can happen.
Yeah.
It happens when you hit apply instead of cancel.
Or preview.
Yes, or leave it as a draft, depending what your CMS is.
Right.
That
Yeah.
may change, but yeah, it happens quite frequently. I've done it myself. I'm sure many others have as well. You accidentally publish a feature and it goes out to millions of users.
Like, whoops.
But of a company the size of Google, even if it goes out for a split second, like people notice.
Oh, yeah.
One of the screenshots showed there weren't a whole lot of details on the page. It was really like you can get the latest and greatest even though you actually couldn't. But there was a small blurb on the page that said stronger protection for user privacy. That sounds kind of basic and generic. Standard. New ways to engage users. Okay, yeah, whatever. Extended support for foldables, which kind of makes sense because
Right.
we're kind of in the middle of this foldable wave that's happening. Vulkan extensions and more. So not a whole lot of details at all, actually. There's really little news here.
What concerns me is that new way of reaching people and communicating. Google continues to have their whole issues with messaging, and I'm hoping that's just not yet another issue of messaging coming up. And sorry for my phone ringing during the show.
That's okay. That's okay. It's
Speaking of messaging, Google
look, it's
Hangouts.
like dinner time. It's important time to reach you time. I totally get it. Yeah.
But no, what does that mean? Is this a new messaging app? Is this just they're finally shutting stuff down and figuring out, all right, we're strictly going to stick with Duo or whatever,
Yeah.
There's also a really interesting thing that came up. They mentioned new APIs for biometrics, which will be interesting.
Oh, is that on there as well?
Yes, so over in the right-hand side, they were saying there's new APIs, and what caught my eye is new APIs for biometrics, which means that there may be a new standard coming set by Google about being able to authenticate your device or authenticate your accounts through hardware, which would be very interesting.
Nice.
Okay.
Because we've seen facial recognition, we've seen fingerprints. What's next? Will we have a platform for iris recognition?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Or combinations of biometric ways of authenticating, both your face and your fingerprint at the same time, or that sort of stuff. I've always thought that would be a really smart way to go, but apparently no one that's making phones does.
I agree.
They don't seem to combine those things.
I agree. If you get the facial recognition, you have the one metric there, and then you have to put that extra fingerprint on there, so you're zeroing out people trying to put up a stupid image of it and stuff like that. Yeah.
Something extra, and it doesn't put the user out any. I think the downside to that, from what I understand, is that the more independent levels of authentication you put up, the more points of failure that it has to actually work, even for the right person.
Oh boy!
And then suddenly you're locked out because it's just not working, and that sort of thing. So
I do
maybe
miss
that's
my
the reason
fingerprint scanner though on the Pixel 4. I do miss that.
Yes.
Yeah, I got to say on my 4XL, I've gotten really used to the face scan. Like, yeah, I don't really miss the fingerprint scanner as much as I did when I first got it. But it would still be nice to have it because sometimes it's a nice extra level of control. The times that it ends up being annoying is when I want to look at my lock screen and read something on it, but because it's a face scan, it immediately recognizes you and pushes me through to the home screen. I'm like, no, I wanted to see what was there. So then you end up like turning it on and putting it sideways so that it's not scanning you. It's like, oh, I think I can read it now.
How does it work with you with sunglasses? Because I haven't had this problem in Scotland where I pick up the phone and it unlocks, whereas here when I'm wearing sunglasses, my Pixel 4 XL doesn't unlock.
I get a little more than 50% with sunglasses. What gets me is if I have one of my caps on.
Oh, okay.
That's an automatic failure.
Yeah, I don't have as much problem with the sunglasses. However, when I was snowboarding and I had a helmet and goggles on, for whatever reason, it couldn't identify me.
I wonder why.
Did you have to take your gloves off to use your phone? Or?
Actually, I have gloves that work through, like that actually work
nice.
with
That's right.
smartphones, so that helps. But anywho, none of that has anything to do with Android 11 other than to say it's around the corner somewhere, probably in the next month. I'm guessing sometime in the next month we'll see it. So we'll wait for that. This next story was big, although it feels like ancient news right now because it happened the day after last week's episode.
Yeah, last week, it was last Wednesday, right before This Week in Google, another show that you and I have done together.
We'll be doing it again tomorrow.
Yes, we will. Wow, that's awesome. Mobile World Congress, you guys may have heard of that. That's that fancy big phone conference that happens over in Barcelona every February. Well, it's not happening this year because of the coronavirus and all of the extra health threats that have been stirred up because of that. This is a pretty big story considering how much money that is invested from all of the different OEMs and people are attending, not just the companies, but the attendees. People are spending lots of money to actually go there. And then you have the issues of the hotels and all of those canceled rooms. I believe we saw on the Verge story that there was about 28,000 rooms that had to be considered in this cancellation. And I'm thinking, can I get to Spain next week?
Yeah, you probably got some pretty inexpensive. Yeah, it's inexpensive travel comparatively speaking. You go to Mobile World Congress on the regular?
I regularly do, yes. I was planning on going this year, not so much for Mobile World Congress, but because a lot of meetings happen outside the conference itself and around it.
Huawei was having one, right?
Exactly. So most of the big tech companies, Huawei, Samsung, and others, they all have their press conferences not at the trade show, in separate venues around the city.
Right.
They're taking advantage of everyone being there at that time, as well as having their separate press conference where they can show off more than they would at the trade show itself.
They can still control the narrative, control what they can show off and how. Yeah.
And so I was going to be in Barcelona for that week. I'm still planning on going, barring anything major happening in my personal life.
Right.
And so from what I hear, there's still a lot of meetings and events happening. A lot more of them will be live streamed, so you'll have access to them on the internet. But there is still going to be a lot of people in Barcelona doing business, despite the trade show being cancelled.
So then, for the purposes of this show, usually Mobile World Congress happens, and I can guarantee that week is going to be devoted to like all of these crazy things being announced at the show. So you're telling me that like there's probably still going to be a Mobile World Congress show next week on this fine show here. It's just not going to be as much driven in the same way. It's going to be a lot more independent kind of offerings.
Yes. So Huawei are having their press conference on the Sunday evening. I won't be there, but apparently that's still going ahead. And Honor are having their press conference on the Monday evening with hands-on time with their new products they're announcing.
Will you be there for that one?
Yes, I will be there for that one.
All right.
So it's going to be interesting because they are now going to be more heavily streaming that on the internet and having a better experience for those connecting remotely.
Okay.
So we'll see how it works out, but it's going to be interesting because it's all fine and well for the big companies. My worry is for the small startups who spent most of their year's budget on being present at the trade show to be able to network and meet people. There's a lot of companies that put themselves on the line for this sort of event. So sadly, that's going to cause a knock-on effect, not only to the startups and the people in MWC themselves, but the hotels, the Airbnbs, the small businesses that depend on the business for their income. This is going to be a really big hit for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I saw 492 million euros to be the financial impact on Barcelona. 14,000 part-time jobs are normally created around this time of year, so it's a huge economic impact.
Mr. Howell, have you been to CES before?
I've been to CES. I've been to the Consumer Electronics Show many times. I've never been to Mobile World Congress.
Okay, and I wanted to ask you that because Mobile World Congress is sort of touted as the phone show, and I think it's a lot more than that. You know, it's. I don't think it gets enough credit for having not only the phone carriers of the world, the big giants there, but also the people doing IoT, doing security and locks and just a lot of the same stuff you see at CES. You know, but it's still considered the phone venue of February or whatever, and I think you should look beyond just the smartphone announcements over there, because people are still going to announce some other products that could be fairly interesting, even Android-based products, because Android just isn't strictly on the phone.
It's not. Yeah, it's not just phones. You're right.
So
yeah,
even the aviation industry are there in force, because a lot of the in-flight entertainment systems run on Android nowadays. So they'll be there.
What, they're not running Knoppets Linux anymore?
I don't think so. They've sad news. They've removed those Ethernet ports from the seats as well.
Android Aeronautical should be the new version of the OS. There's Android Auto and then Android Aero.
That makes sense.
Why not?
And then Android Nautical. Okay.
I think iFly has already been taken as a trademark.
Thank you. Yay for 2 points. Android Aero is the new version of the OS. We'll see what happens there. So then you're not worried. Like you're going, like I also wonder about this. If all these companies are bailing on Barcelona because of, fears of coronavirus, whether they are founded or not, like as an attendee, do you have any of those concerns?
No, personally, I don't have any of those concerns. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert, but there's been no real travel advisories against going to Spain. Spain is not a hotbed of the issue, and a lot of the attendees who are going to be there have either been out of the hot zone, China, for a significant amount of time. They've been there for well over a month preparing for MWC.
Yeah, wow.
So they're unlikely to be a vector for this contagion.
Yeah.
Then again, there's always the worry that you're going to be on a plane, train, in a taxi with someone, and that happens. I'm optimistic about this, so I'm going to go to Barcelona and eat as much jamon as possible.
Good. I mean, the jamon's calling.
Oh man, yes.
You got to heed that call for the jamon.
Now,
I understand.
What do you guys think for think of the folks with the GSMA? I always get the letters mixed up. Far as them actually saying, "Hey, we need to just go ahead and cancel this," because they're going to they're already catching a lot of flack from people that wanting refunds and things of that nature. But did they have to do it? What are your thoughts?
That's a really good question. I mean, my gut is that I feel like they made the right move. I think if all of these companies, by and large, are peeling out one after the other, I think it would be kind of foolish for them to not at least evaluate it and weigh their options. Whether it was the right option or not, like I feel like it could have kind of gone either way as far as, from their perspective, and I can understand why they chose that. But I've never attended, so I don't know. What do you think?
It's a difficult one. So the GSMA, in my view, have been a bit drunk on their own power for the last few years.
Okay.
We know many of our friends who have often been refused press passes because GSMA have been raising the standards so much that they've been leaving out some of their core audiences. That goes with not only the press, but it goes with a lot of the the companies that go to the trade show, they've been pricing the smaller startups, the smaller exhibitors out of the trade show, and really been squeezing everyone from the top vendors, whether they're network connectivity companies or device makers, to the smaller startups. They've been really squeezing hard. And I think that for some of those businesses, this was just an excuse to get out from spending a lot of money on a trade show that wasn't bringing that much value.
Oh, okay.
So companies like Ericsson, which used to make phones but is now focusing entirely on the back end, on the networks that provide us with connectivity for our mobile devices, for them to pull out, yes, it's great that they're dressing it up as an issue with coronavirus, but I think there's also a much deeper economic issue at hand there.
Man.
Oh, I like your take better than my take.
This is just a sort of conspiracy theory from an economic standpoint.
Yeah.
This is breaking GSMA's hold on that trade show and that industry.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised to see MWC next year have a lot of players decide not to attend.
Oh, interesting.
And then we'll watch the rates go down for the following year, right?
Yes.
You think it's returning to Barcelona? Because that was one of the questions. Is like, oh, well, maybe it won't be in Barcelona anymore.
Well, that's another interesting thing, is how much the Catalonian government and the Spanish government give incentives to the GSMA to actually hold the event there, because we've talked about the economic impact on the city of Barcelona and the Spanish economy.
Right.
So that will be very interesting to see, because obviously in this case it's been cancelled. Will Spain really want this potential risk, or are they going to go for the sort of steady move? And does this give cities like maybe Frankfurt, Milan, the opportunity to step in and host, if not MWC itself, but a competing event?
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I really like your take better than mine. That was good. That was good. Well, speaking of things that are canceled, these two things, like, I swear they happened like on the same day, and it was like cancel day for Android related things.
Like, this is supposed to happen on Tuesday, the day of the show.
I know. It all feels like old news because it literally happened 6 days ago, but it's news that we can't not talk about on this show at least once. So we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it, though. Essential, if you hadn't heard, we talked on them on this show many times over the course of the last few years. They are dead as dead can be. They announced last week they're shutting doors immediately. No Gem Phone. Gem Phone was announced by Andy Rubin on his Twitter account mid last year. The long, like, slender form factor phone that was perplexing to everyone. Must have been like a Hail Mary move at that point. Like, I'm wondering like what they were thinking at that point, of as far as like how much runway they had, how likely it was that they were going to stay in business, like whatever was going on there for Andy Rubin to just tweet that out. But of course that backfired. Andy Rubin was taken seriously to task for sexual harassment accusations that have been presented against him and everything. So that kind of like tanked the delivery of that. Muddied the waters as far as that was concerned. If you have a current Essential phone, the one phone they ever released in their however many years of being a business, it will cease to receive any more updates. Where it's at now, I think with the last security update, that's it. You're not going to get any other support, which they supported it longer than most phones.
One of my favorite tweets here recently was from our very own Father Robert Ballasair. Yeah. You can take my Essential phone from my cold, dead hands. Oh, wait, it's already dead.
There you go. I love it.
It's sad. I remember being a guest on All About Android when Andy Rubin was on stage at All Things D, and Walt Mossberg was stroking his phone on stage.
The Essential phone guy, yes. Because it had just been revealed by Rubin on stage. That's right.
And it was a new hope. Everyone was really excited about this. And the fact that Andy Rubin, the godfather of Android, was really invested in this, literally. Yeah. It's sad to see it go the way it went. They had a lot of really talented engineers, both from a hardware and software standpoint. I met with them at MWC a couple of times, 2 years in a row. They were a great company to work with. They really broke things down and explained the value of what they were doing. Sadly, they're no longer there, but I'm sure that those people will move on to equally impactful roles at other places.
For sure. Talented people. The company just couldn't hold up to the scrutiny around the fact that Andy Rubin went out as spectacularly as he did based on this sexual harassment accusations and everything that happened at Google, everything that was reported on. I mean, it just wasn't sustainable to have their business hinge on him. Yes, had such a pivotal role in the development of Android, but also has this really shady, yucky, part of his history that is impossible to kind of separate from the company itself. So the company goes under. I totally agree with you. Talented people, and I'm sure they're all gonna, find a gig where they can express those talents in other ways, and we'll look forward to seeing what they come up with. Who knows? Maybe we'll see another gem, but from a different company.
All right. Now, when I think of Android, I think of a certain type of customer and a certain type of enthusiast from a nerdy standpoint. And when I thought of Essential, it seems like that nerdy standpoint was really ratcheted up. Now, you just mentioned that it was a pleasure working with them and being able to hear how they communicated with you about what was coming down the pike and what they were trying to, present to the world. When they spoke to you, did they speak to you in your language, the wonderful developer world, or was it something that even I could understand when you were sitting down? Because I know you do APIs and just write code and with your eyes closed, and me, I can barely get my phone to stop saying "wake up" and
Well, no, they had a really product-led approach to what they were doing. They weren't thinking about the tech for tech's sake.
Okay.
They were thinking about the user experience. In a way, they were trying to preempt what we then saw with the Pixel.
Okay.
The Pixel, I think, has taken that space Essential was in over the years. So that's where I think things were at. They had this whole idea of creating a premium Android experience, light and accessible, but a premium space, an aspirational product. That's what they were working on.
Right.
In a way that the Essential phone could have been the real competitor to the iPhone. And I think that's where they were wanting to go with it. And they explained that as this is for someone who doesn't want to worry about the background and the API in the Android version. It just gets updated, it just works, and it provides an overall pleasant experience.
But isn't that what Samsung is doing? It just gets updated, it just works.
It does. I'd say Samsung, from an execution standpoint, we see that they lag behind with software updates, with operating system updates, and they're trying to use too many bells and whistles. Mm-hmm. Whereas Essential was, as the name of the brand was, just the Essential phone. Right. If you wanted to add the apps and services or the add-on clip-on functions, you could do that with their modular solution. Whereas Samsung is putting everything they can into their phones, as we saw last week with the S20 series and the Galaxy Z Flip.
Yeah. Let's pretty this phone up as best we can and hope people will buy it.
Yeah. Oh, and people will, because we're Samsung.
And it's waterproof too.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see here. Speaking of Samsung, actually, we have an email from Mike, and I thought this was an interesting thing to answer on the show. It might take a few minutes to do so, but I'm sure other people have this question too. Mike says, please explain the difference in 5G capabilities between the following Samsung cell phones: S10 Plus with 5G, Note 10 Plus with 5G, S20, and the S20 Plus with 5G. I have T-Mobile service, currently have a Samsung S9, which I'm looking to upgrade. I'm leaning towards the Note 10 Plus with 5G. And it can be a little confusing, right? Last year, Samsung came out with a couple of phones that had 5G variants. This year, they've just announced the S20 and the S20 Ultra and the S20 Plus, and they are all 5G capable, but they aren't all the same 5G capable. And neither were last year's, because last year was really ahead of the curve as far as 5G is concerned. So I did some digging because I was like, you know what? I feel like I need to know a little bit more about 5G because I get confused about this stuff too. So the S10 Plus, which was last year with 5G, I'm just going to say right off the top, don't get it. If you were thinking about getting that, don't do it. It has support for millimeter wave networks only, which basically provide high speeds, shorter distance. It's very easily blocked. So, walls and even windows are going to block that signal. So it was like technically 5G support. Yes, on a technical level it was. But the long-term kind of view on it is not as good.
Yes, it's essentially
already somewhat outdated.
That's essentially glorified Wi-Fi. It works well in situations like Stadia, where you have a few thousand people sitting under one transmitter with nothing in between them and the transmitter.
Right.
Obviously, the caveat to this type of 5G and all others is as long as there's enough network backhaul getting to that transmitter.
Right. Now, the Note 10 Plus with 5G, which is what he is considering getting out of these options, and I'm going to give you details on not just T-Mobile. I know that T-Mobile is your network, and this phone does support T-Mobile's low-band 5G spectrum, better coverage than millimeter wave, slower speeds comparatively. But it also supports AT&T's low-band 5G spectrum. It supports Verizon's millimeter wave spectrum network, and it supports Sprint's mid-band network. That's also known as sub 6 gigahertz network, which from what I can gather here in kind of reading up on this, the mid-band 5G is probably going to be the most widespread eventually. It's probably going to be the sweet spot where you're kind of in the middle. You're not in this this short distance, high speed, but easily blocked category, and you're not in the total opposite of that. You're somewhere in between. That's kind of the balance point. And so the Note 10 with 5G actually supports a good amount there, and that's a reasonable option. Now, the new phones that came out, the S20 with 5G and the S20 Plus with 5G, yes, they all support 5G, but they are a little bit different. If you're getting the S20, which is the lowest cost version of this, it has support for mid-band, aka sub 6 gigahertz band networks on all of the carriers. So that's good support there. However, Verizon says that it's not going to work with their 5G network until Q2 at least. So if you want this for 5G now and you're on Verizon, you're thinking about it. I know you aren't, emailer, but if someone is, that's something to consider. Verizon in Q2 is going to launch its ultra wideband network, and then the S20 will support almost everything that you're going to need. The S20 Plus and the S20 Ultra with 5G support all flavors of 5G. That's sub-6 and millimeter wave networks on all U.S. carriers. And yes, that includes Verizon's 5G ultra wideband network once that launches as well. But you get full support all around that way for both sub-6 and millimeter wave networks. So I don't know. Hopefully that's helpful. As you can see, this kind of is indicative of where we're at with 5G right now, is that it's still pretty confusing. It can be a little confusing, but it's getting better.
This piece from VentureBeat is really well done, and it's given me a better understanding just listening to you go through it. And I had no idea it was this many levels or flavors, if you will, of 5G. I thought 5G was 5G.
Yeah, I think a lot. Well, and I think that's convenient. I think a lot of people think 5G is 5G. Meanwhile, there's all these different tiers. The VentureBeat article calls it like layers on a cake.
Right.
It's like you've got the base layer, you've got the middle layer, and you've got the top layer. And the top layer is really small, it's
a great analogy.
So, anyways, so we'll see, and I'm sure this will get easier over time. But Samsung's kind of ensuring that all their future phones, their premium phones anyways, will have full support for 5G, at least here in the U.S. This was a very U.S.-centric kind of check-in as far as this is concerned, but maybe that helps.
Do you think this is more complicated than the 4G rollout?
Feels more complicated than the 4G rollout. I mean...
do you think we're going to have... remember on the first few 4G phones...
Thunderbolt.
Yes, the Thunderbolt. It was just a bad experience, right?
It was, and oh man, the Thunderbolt. That was my first 4G phone.
Yeah, same here. And then when I got the next one, it was so much better, right?
And I think part of that is probably due to the network just being built out. Right. Part of that also is that the Thunderbolt just had a horrible battery in it. It was 5G was so 4G was so battery inefficient on that device that it just cranked through that battery so fast. And yeah, that was the big problem with the Thunderbolt. But
I think here in the US, you went through a similar phase with WiMAX and 4G, where Sprint wanted WiMAX to be the 4G standard.
Yeah,
so I
that
think
lasted about a month.
That it did, and it was very successful at CES, if I don't remember wrongly. But that was one of those situations where no one knew what the actual technical standard was going to be, but they knew what the marketing sticker 4G was going to be. And I think we're in the same phase at the moment with 5G, unless a body like GSMA can step in and say, with clear certainty, this is what you can call 5G. That's obviously an issue. Back with 4G, we had T-Mobile selling HSPA Plus as
AT&T
4G,
did that, right?
And AT&T has been doing it with the 5GE. So we really need to rein in the marketers sometimes. That's just my view.
Good
from
luck.
The outside.
Yes, I think you're right. Absolutely.
Rein it in, or
Good luck.
just wait until everything is built out. You know, I was able to hang out with Mr. Matteo last night on a photo walk and doing some sunset photography, and somehow we got nerdy and talked about 5G and 4G abroad, and he had a pretty good story, you know, with just how was it Singapore?
Yes,
Singapore how they're dealing and how they're addressing the aspect of 5G.
Yeah, so Singapore are taking a step back. They have a very good network infrastructure, and Singapore is a city-state. It's one city, a whole country, very high density of population. They rolled out 4G, and they did it very, very well. Not only do they have lots of masts that provide lots of very good coverage, they have that backhaul, that internet connection to the masts that allows the 4G speeds to be very, very fast. And even as a tourist, if you're traveling, going to Singapore, you can buy a 10-day SIM card with 100 gigabytes of data, unlimited calls and texts in Singapore for around about $30.
Jeez.
Wow.
And availability of data and the speeds is astounding on 4G. There's no real needs for 5G. There's no real application for it yet. So my understanding is that Singapore are waiting until the standards have been defined a bit better, and then they're going to invest heavily in the infrastructure at a later date so that the 5G rollout will bring value in the long term. Whereas what we're seeing with a lot of networks around the world at the moment is that they're jumping on the bandwagon to be first,
right?
But they're also learning as they go. So some places are going to make the mistakes, whilst others are going to wait till those mistakes have been made and learn from them going forward.
Yeah.
But in the UK, we have the same situation. The 5G rollout is gradual, and a lot of the networks are taking their time to do it properly.
Meanwhile, 5G is all the marketing rage on these phones coming out.
And if you're looking for
continue to be.
If you're looking for some music on YouTube, the Tech Travel Geeks YouTube channel, we have a 5G music video from MWC last year because 5G was everywhere. Victor, I've put it in the show notes next to the 5G answer. It's essentially everywhere was 5G last year at MWC. 5G, and a lot of companies were using the term 5G without actually knowing or having a product that would run on it. But this is the track and video that Lukasz, our Chief Aperture Officer, put together using my voice. And it's just me saying 5G, 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 5G.
Oh wow, I see them. All the different 5Gs, they're everywhere.
Yes.
This is
And
gold.
just circling it. Yes, I wonder what they want us to know. Wonder what's important right now.
This is a true masterpiece Lukasz put together about 5G.
Love it.
And it's still going today. It's still on YouTube, so
probably 5 times as much 5G at Mobile World Congress if it was actually happening this year.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, last year at MWC, the 5G was all the rage, but it was only local tests rollout.
Right.
There was no real 5G.
Right. I'm going to sneeze. Why don't you do the ad? Sorry, I knew it was going to happen. I'm just like, it's coming. It's
That's
coming.
totally fine. We will take this opportunity to thank this week's sponsor. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by LegalZoom. It's still early in the year, but if you run a small business, you know 2020 will fly by. So that's why you should use LegalZoom right now to make sure you're set up for success. Over the past 19 years, LegalZoom has helped more than 2 million Americans start their businesses by incorporating, forming an LLC, and more. But even after your business is set up and running, LegalZoom can still help you out with a lot more. Things like lease agreements, changing tax laws, reviewing contracts, and all of this stuff plays a part in running your own business. These are precisely the kind of costly hurdles that can take time away from growing your business. Don't let this happen, folks. LegalZoom's network of independent attorneys and tax professionals can provide advice to address these things and more. And you'll never get charged by the hour since LegalZoom isn't a law firm. Go to LegalZoom.com today and enter promo code AAA in the box at checkout for special savings. That's LegalZoom.com, promo code AAA. LegalZoom, where life meets legal.
Thank you, LegalZoom. All right. So I didn't actually end up sneezing. Instead, it's like I internalized the sneeze, and now my nose is stuffy. See, the weather here has been really crazy.
And sneeze happening in 3, 2.
No, it's like it passed. It's like it went, no, you know what? Instead of getting out of you, I'm going to like infect your nose with runniness. So I'm going to get a Kleenex here in a second. But yeah, the weather here is just really weird. It's like mid 70s in February. It's just not right. So everything's in bloom, and try as I may to take allergy medications, it's just not working. Anywho, that's the explanation for that. And it's time for some hardware.
Thank you very much, Victor.
Very nice. I love it when
awesome.
Matteo's Hardware Shack gets a chance to
awesome.
come out to play.
Thank you.
So the Oppo Reno 2, Reno or Reno?
Reno.
Reno, okay.
I'm assuming it's named after the French artist, because this is a phone which really has imaging as its strong point.
Nice.
So what do we have here? So I'm looking at, sorry, Burke is bringing in a roll of paper towels for my nose. Thank you, Burke.
He's bringing
Actually, Burke, I do appreciate it because I might need all of this.
It's going to be that much.
It's truly man-sized.
Love it. Okay, so the Oppo Reno 2 or Reno, it's very, very shiny.
It's very shiny.
Very reflective.
Ron isn't here to give me a row, but it is a shiny smartphone. It's from the company called Oppo. The company called Oppo, who are very big in China and Southeast Asia. And it is a lovely smartphone in the high mid-range segment of the market. So this device is about £400 or $500. It is a full-screen smartphone. As you can see, there's close to no bezel at the top, the bottom, and the sides. And the way that happens is that it has a pop-up selfie camera. So you'll see at the top there's a shark fin selfie camera, which is really, really good. So it's a good selfie camera. But this is how they've managed to deliver a 6.5-inch display with no notch. And it's a lovely AMOLED display. It works really, really well. So this is, as I said, a $500 smartphone, more or less. And it's running, in this case, it's running a Snapdragon 730 chipset. So that's the 730G chipset. It's not the full 8 series chipset. It has a lower end graphics chipset. But for most users, whether they're going to be playing games, whether they're going to be using it normally or heavily, it makes little difference.
Right.
So as far as a smartphone goes, this is, to most users, going to be a flagship. As I said, nice big screen, aluminium body with glass sandwich design. It has holographic design on the back. As you can see here, it is not only very shiny, it has a feeling of depth to the glass.
Like iridescent.
And as well as that, the engineering feat, in my view, is that there's no camera bump. This is a completely smooth back.
Oh, nice.
The whole back of the phone is also covering the lenses. So very impressive design. And a little touch is this notch at the back.
What is that
gives
for?
you a tactile feel. And if you put the device down on its back, you won't scratch the lenses.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So it's like protrudes.
Well, no.
It protrudes a little
it
bit.
does. Okay, that's what that is. I didn't know if it was an indentation, but no, it's an Audi, not an any.
And it doesn't look like you would notice it just at first glance because of the way that the paint or color is on it.
Yeah.
Sort of
So
blends.
that's good.
From
I like that.
from an aesthetic standpoint, this is a beautiful phone. It is really, really nice. And it also feels nice to hold. It has good weighting. It feels good to hold and use. It's really nice to type on when you're typing with two thumbs, as I do often. It's a good smartphone, which is running Android 9 at the moment, but will be updated to Android 10. Now, when I say Android, it's actually Oppo's Android distribution called Color OS. In this case, it's Color OS 6.1. So it has its own launcher with an app drawer. You swipe up to get into your apps. You can go left to their equivalent of your Google Smart Home, the Smart Assistant page, and you can add widgets and features to this. So overall, really good smartphone, excellent battery life. Even bigger advantage is on the bottom. So not only do you have Type-C for connectivity, you have a Courage port.
Woo.
That's a 3.5 millimeter audio jack.
That's impossible. How did they do that? How did they add a Courage port in this phone?
Very
I
carefully.
think there's a very good product trade-off decision that they had to make. Do we make it waterproof or not?
Oh, okay.
So this is
Yeah.
has no official IP rating. It's not a waterproof smartphone, but it has this advantage, that 3.5 millimeter audio jack. Now, I've been using this to film some videos for the Tech Travel Geeks YouTube channel, and with an external microphone which connects via 3.5 millimeter audio jack. And this is the very good smartphone for that. The 48 megapixel sensor on the back not only takes really good pictures, backed up by Oppo's software, it also records video in 4K. So overall, a really good smartphone. But it also has a wide-angle lens, a depth sensor, and a monochrome or black and white sensor. And Oppo's software, that Color OS, and its camera app really do a good job of handling nighttime photography. Victor, in our show notes, we've got the YouTube video that the Tech Travel Geeks did. I took this to Singapore and Shenzhen. Nighttime photography in these cities with skyscrapers lit up is really impressive on this $500 smartphone. I would say it works better than some of the other flagships I've been using recently in low light. So it's just a different approach to nighttime photography. Rather than take one long exposure, it takes a burst of pictures in a fraction of a second,
Right.
and then does all the processing in the background. But even
Good
in
old computational.
Yeah.
Yes. Even in normal lighting conditions, the dynamic range is really impressive. And you and I were out at the beach
Yeah, I was
last
a little
night.
angry at his dynamic range yesterday. So it looked so good.
Compared to what? So this versus
Pixel.
Your Pixel.
My DSLR.
okay.
This
had better dynamic range than really?
It did. We
Wow.
were shooting directly into the sunlight because we're trying to get the sunset.
Yeah.
So you're going to immediately get silhouette and really, really dark shadows.
Yes, indeed.
And the computational was like, oh, let me just pretty that up a little bit
Oh,
for you.
interesting. Okay, so it did well in that perspective. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this situation, I was pointing right at the sun, and Ant's orange Clemson Tigers T-shirt and hoodie were standing out as orange things on the sand, something that you wouldn't see in normal situations,
Right.
even with something like a Pixel or the new iPhone.
Yep.
I was doing a comparison. But this is the strength of the device, is
Yeah,
that
no
nighttime
kidding.
photography is stunning from a device which isn't a true flagship. So I really want to get my hands on the new Oppo flagships to put them through their nighttime photography steps.
Yeah.
So, and not only that, the screen itself is very good. Let me pull up the picture from last night.
Oh yeah, I would love to see that on the display.
So this is on the display of the device.
See,
Oh, okay.
You can see-
we're standing down in a hole, and you can see the shadow that's cast in that hole where we're standing.
There's a bit of a lens flare there, but apart from that, the orange on Ant's top.
Didn't want it. It was
Oh, sorry,
reflecting.
yeah.
No, it's all good.
There you go.
There we go.
The orange, this Ant should have been blown out by the light coming off the sea.
Yeah, you're right.
And then another advantage, we mentioned Father Robert Balliser earlier. So the Oppo Reno 2 comes with a screen protector already applied. Not only does it have a screen protector already applied, when you purchase it, at least in the UK, you get a pleather case for it. It's not Mocadile, but it's nice. It has real stitching on it, and it has all the relevant ports. And that pop-up selfie camera can be used quite easily here.
Oh, even with the case
Even
on.
with the case
Nice.
on, because it's shaped appropriately. Now, maybe we're getting a bit of extra reflection there, so we'll give a nod to Father Robert Balliser.
Father Robert, this is for you.
This is for you.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Take off that screen protector.
Which means that the under-screen fingerprint scanner works even faster now.
Oh, see, the phone looks even better without that screen protector.
Man.
It does. I'm afraid to scratch the screen. It's such a lovely device.
Yeah.
But the fingerprint scanner is fast. It's nice to hold. Overall, I'm questioning why I would spend more than the $500 on this smartphone for a true flagship. What are
Yeah,
the real
right,
advantages? When it can do that computational photography, when it can edit video the way it does, I see this as a big challenger to the more expensive devices, and in a way it's filling that gap in the market OnePlus left when it moved up market in terms of its pricing.
Do you like Color OS?
It's something that you learn to live with, but
Yeah.
also in the last couple of years,
Definitely
ColorOS has improved. Having that pull-up app drawer, it is much more similar to the Google experience of Android or Android open source, the Android open source project experience.
Yeah.
So I'd say well done to Oppo. This is really a big step up for them. This is their second generation of devices for sale in the UK and Europe at scale. And that makes me even more excited about the Oppo Reno 3 and the Oppo Reno 3 series. This is a company that you may not have heard of much in the US, but is really stepping up its game. And in terms of connectivity, I haven't had any issues connecting to AT&T 4G or T-Mobile 4G here. I haven't tested it on Verizon or Sprint, but I imagine it wouldn't work very well on those networks because this is a GSM. handset.
GSM.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right on.
My only beef with that phone, and heck, pretty much most of the phones today, is I'm still not a fan of the thin bezels on phones. It's just seems like I have a better experience swiping less accidentally when I had a bezel there. You know, but it seems like that's the craze and the way that everything's going to go on phones nowadays.
It is. Yeah, it really seems that way.
That is, unless you decide a Doogee rugged phone is the way forward.
That would be no.
Well, why not? Look, this thing.
That
you could
thing's
ride
a tank.
Yeah, you could ride a tank over it. and
It's
it
got a
wouldn't-
really nice set of bezels, both at the top and the bottom, and a notch.
Yeah, it probably has a fuel cell on it too, right?
I'm not sure if it's a fuel cell, but they declare it as a 6,300 milliamp hour battery.
Wow.
That's built in,
Goodness.
as well as IP69K rating.
Man.
So that's the Doogee S68.
That feels.
Pro.
Yeah, that looks like a tank. It really does.
It does, and it feels like one too. I have made my efforts to actually break this. We have been throwing it quite a distance in multiple tests.
Oh, I need to see video of that.
Yes, I can share that with you in the link in a moment. But this has NFC. It's a full mid-range smartphone. It's around about $200 at the moment from Doogee. You can purchase it on AliExpress, Amazon, and other places. And it's a really good smartphone with a pretty much stock experience when it comes to Android. So you have essentially the Android open source project copied and pasted by MediaTek, and overall good experience. The cameras are not as good as on the Oppo. They're definitely a step down.
Not for $200, right?
Exactly. But overall, if you want a good, reliable smartphone that will last you many days in standard use, this is an example. And when I get back to the UK in the next few weeks, we're actually going to be driving cars over these devices to see how they get on.
Well, you know,
not right.
I'm happy that Burke put this in the chat room. He says that might give my boots a run for the money. That is a reference to, I don't know how many years ago, Burke was at CES with Twit, and some company was showing off an indestructible phone. And Burke ended up putting the phone on the ground and stomping on it with his boots. And sure enough, he broke that phone.
That a boy.
So if anyone can break this, Burke can break it.
Oh, yeah.
Good. I trust in Burke. What I'll do is I'll finish my review, Burke. We'll drive over it a few times. I'll carry on throwing it around Scotland at castles. And then once that's done, I'll send you the phone to finish it off.
Please and thank you.
I love it.
But with this device, you get 6 gig of RAM, 128 gigabytes of storage, expandable with micro SD. No Courage port. The Type-C port is sealed with this latch. It takes a while to get it off, and the Type-C port is really recessed.
I hate latches like that.
So this is a really good case for why you would want Bluetooth audio.
Yeah.
It has wireless charging, so you don't really need to open this latch to charge it at night. You pop it on a wireless charging stand. It has NFC, so you can use it for Google Pay. This is a Google certified device. I have used Google Pay on it. It works quite well. And it has a fingerprint scanner on the back, which is something a lot of companies have been leaving out recently.
Yeah.
Doogee have kept that on the S68 Pro, whereas on their flagship S95 Pro, they've put it on the side. But overall,
nice.
If you're looking for bezels, Ant, this is an example of something.
A little bit of weight.
Yeah. That, good grief. I just caught a cramp trying to grab this thing.
Wait a minute, you lift weights?
Yes, but that is a heavy dadgum phone. My goodness, man.
That'll hurt you. If you drop that on your foot, that'll hurt.
Yes. Yeah. This is the phone you give to your if you want to give a phone to a teenager. You know, just give it to them.
Your teenager's not going to school and pulling out that phone.
No. They're not going to pull it out.
You know, I'll leave my phone
destroy it. Dang, that's insane.
So yeah, but that's heavy because of the aluminium construction. It's really made to take quite a pounding.
Wow.
And Doogee's core market for this are the construction industry and people who live in rural areas, just because of that massive battery and durability.
Dust protection and all of that.
Dust and steam protection in this case, because it's that new IP69K rating.
Steam protection. Wow.
And it has a programmable function button at the side as well, so you can have your favorite app on it.
It's so funny. It has all of these lenses on the back for $200, and I know they're crappy lenses.
They are really bad, but one of them is wide angle, which is
at least you've got a really bad wide angle lens.
And if you try taking portrait mode pictures, sadly it's the same as if you just drunk a few crates of beer.
Yeah.
It's a bit blurry.
It blurs everything.
Right. You got a few other Doogees.
Yes. So moving on to another one. This is not as heavy as the Doogee S68 Pro. This is the Doogee N100. That 100 is short for 10,000 milliamp hour. That's the size of the battery of this thing.
Whoa.
So
okay, that's a thick phone.
Is this a power bank with a phone glued to it, or is it a phone with a power bank glued to it? It's one of those fundamental questions we don't know the answer to. This is a Type-C smartphone. No Courage port here either.
Okay.
It has chunky bezels at the top and bottom. No notch. And not only that, that 10,000 milliamp hour battery really does last a long time. So whilst testing this, I did the usual test where you leave the device connected to networks, both SIM card and Wi-Fi, and leave it alone to see how long the battery will last.
Right.
I left it from the 1st of January to the 1st of February, and there's still 15% battery left.
Wow. And that's just doing absolutely nothing but just sitting there being connected, powered on.
Yeah. And it was getting notifications. I was turning it on every week to check what the battery drain level was. In terms of design, it has a fingerprint scanner on the back. It's chunky. And it has a couple of cameras on the back. Just as with the S68 Pro, don't expect your Oppo Reno 2 performance. But what I do like about it, it has a sort of pleather finish on the back. It's pleather or plastic.
Wade County in chat says, I like the leather back, and thankfully corrected himself with pleather because, that's not leather.
It's definitely not leather. And we thought that back in 2012, 2013, Samsung had essentially depleted the world's supplies of fake stitching, as they did back with the Galaxy Note tablets and the Samsung Galaxy S5 and the Note 3. Doogee have found some supply of fake stitching, so on the pleather there's printed stitching on the back. It is something that is to behold, but it feels good to hold, and it obviously softens the weight from that 10,000 milliamp hour battery. The way they do that, they managed to offer this device for around $200, is that it has a lower-end chipset in it, whereas the Doogee S68 Pro has a P70 chipset, which is more or less the equivalent of a Snapdragon 665. This has the equivalent of a Snapdragon 4 series chipset. This is the Helio P23. So high-end games like Goat Simulator will struggle a little with this one. But apart from that, for most functions, video calling, messaging, social media, it's fine. It works really well. It's, again, you need to get used to this hefty weight.
Now, when you say battery, like a power pack, can you offload that power to other phones?
Yes, you can. You can reverse charge any device with a USB Type-C cable. And I actually have done that. I topped up my iPhone using that Type-C port at the bottom. It's not reverse wireless charging. That's something that's reserved for their flagship device. But with the Type-C port in the bottom, you can charge another smartphone a couple of times and still have a normal week's use out of that device. It is really quite impressive.
Some of the edges of this remind me of like the older Motorola Razr phones.
Yes, that's what it was. I was going to say LG.
Totally,
it was Motorola.
Has a Motorola like circa 2012 Droid Razr quality to it.
Oh man.
And then one other Doogee.
Yes, well, last Doogee for this trip. This is the Doogee N20. This is a smartphone that currently sells for around about $120 on Amazon in the UK. I would say if you're in the US, don't even consider buying this because it will not connect to AT&T or T-Mobile's 3G or 4G networks. It runs on Edge only. But
Edge.
But this is because of the networks. This is targeted at Southeast Asia, Africa, and Europe.
Oh, okay.
They're not catering for the US networks. But the good thing is you get a 4,300 milliamp hour battery, so big battery. You get a nice 1080p screen. It's a nice big screen with a notch and relatively small bezels. And a simplified version of Android. It's based on AOSP. This has received quarterly updates since I got it.
Nice.
In terms of security patches. So not too much to complain about. Not a great smartphone, but if you're on a budget or if you're traveling to Europe and you don't want to have a Verizon device unlocked, this might be the sort of thing you want to order on Amazon and have delivered to your hotel room so that you can use a local SIM card whilst traveling. So that's one of the things to bear in mind. The storage is expandable with micro SD, so for media purposes it works well. Only downside I could find on this is that it's a micro USB charger.
Oh no.
In 2020, I think it's time to say goodbye to micro USB.
Yeah, I would agree.
But it does have a courage port.
Okay.
And the camera on this makes my cats look as if they've been painted by impressionists. No joke about Reno, but it really is a bit of a potato cam. But overall, for the price, you're getting really good value for money. The Doogee N20, it's $99 at the moment, which is a good deal.
Are those wireless earphones that come with it?
Yes, it looks as if they're doing an offer there. So just so that you're aware, this isn't joke stores that you can purchase it from. So AliExpress, Doogee Mall, and Banggood are all real and quite reliable sales sites. They're actually marketplaces.
Never heard of Doogee Mall.
So Doogee Mall is sort of using a separate sales platform through Alibaba and Taobao. It's using that as the back end to then sell the product. It looks and feels like a Doogee sales site, but it's actually powered by those other ones. Obviously, Doogee is a small startup. They don't have that many people working there. They do provide pretty regular updates because they're supported by MediaTek, the company that makes the chipsets in these devices.
Nice.
There have been a few complaints about some limited customer service. So they either have language issues dealing with customer service requests, or take a while to get back.
Or
to
scale.
people.
Right.
But the fact that they're still on Amazon means that they do have a certain level of service and they are dealing with issues. So I'm quite confident that they will get better as they grow as a business. And they have those niche markets. They're solving problems that other smartphone companies don't. So hopefully we'll see more interesting devices coming from Doogee in the coming years.
Nice.
Sweet.
It's the Doogee 3-fur, the S68 Pro, the N100, and the N20. Nice roundup. And especially of devices that we just never get into the studio. So thank you for bringing those.
But then again, as I said earlier, if you're in the US, really check
Be sure.
everything, because as I said, the N100 and the N20 definitely don't work on US networks.
Yeah,
the S68 does work on T-Mobile and AT&T.
Okay. Awesome. Well, before we get out of the hardware section, we've got a few more things to talk about. You saw this and threw this in there.
Well, we've been hearing all of these rumors and not rumors, but discussion about foldable phones over the last couple of weeks. And quite frankly, that stuff is old news now.
Such old news.
That's so 2019 at this point. Jessica Dolcourt over on CNET was able to get a couple leaked images from TCL as they have a new phone that's not foldable, but it has a screen that slides out, giving you an extra display and making your phone look about like a tablet. Pretty interesting tech. Apparently this was going to be discussed during Mobile World Congress, so I don't quite understand why it was called a leak, but tomato, who knows. I thought this was pretty fascinating. This is just yet another way of a company trying to innovate and make these smartphones a little bit more unique, because they all look the same.
Yeah.
At this point, until these foldable devices came out. And we've been hearing a lot of discussions about, the likes of the Samsung Z Flip, and it looks better than Motorola's, but it still has some reasons to be concerned with the hinge and things like that. Yeah. So here's a different take, Wow,
that's an interesting design. So when it's rolled up, it looks like a normal smartphone, but then you can see it's like a little track system that it kind of pulls out, almost like an accordion sort of thing, right? Or a scroll, I guess. I don't know how to describe it for audio listeners.
A scroll's a good description. So it's like a scroll on rails.
Yeah. That's about the best way I could put it too. I didn't know exactly what to think of it.
I think it's cool.
Other than, hey, this is yet someone else trying to do something different, because I can remember when foldable screens first hit the scene. I believe it was about 3 or 4 years ago at CES, and seeing screens just roll up the wall when people were doing like their own little home movie theaters or whatever. So, of course, you can just iterate from that and, give it another practical application, practical in air quotes, that is, on a smartphone.
Right. So I'm looking. All right. So if you scroll up, Victor, and go to the image that is the front, back, and then the unfolded above this, I think. Yeah, this one. So I'm looking at how it works, and I want to understand. And you see the front image of the phone. You see the top right-hand corner is the front-facing camera, right? Mm-hmm. And then if you scroll down, you'll see the unfolded version. That camera is still in the top right. So basically what that seems to show is that this foldable phone or this display, this flexible display, curves off of the left edge, right? And retracts into it. That's what I'm trying to figure out, is like how it actually does this, because that camera and that notch is going to stay there. Therefore, it's pulling the display from around the other edge.
That's why I was wondering if it was about like a roll, a toilet
Yeah.
toilet tissue roll.
Kind of seems
something
like
that.
something like that.
Pull it apart, kind of thing. I hate saying toilet tissue. Sorry.
It's like a toilet paper that you can talk to.
and look at cat pictures on.
Yes.
But it's difficult to really describe it from this because you don't see a functional form. It's just all still images. What CNET got their hands on.
We've seen this at MWC in the last few years. TCL's stands at MWC is always great fun to look at because they have all these prototypes of foldable OLED screens. They're showing off how you can handle them. And I think this might be a very good practical solution to the problem we've seen on the Motorola Moto Razr. It's a solution that we are seeing to the crease on the Galaxy Z Flip.
Mm-hmm.
This is rolling it, so you don't have an actual fold point on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it's going to leave less marks depending on how you use it.
Okay, so looking at the Z Flip and looking at the Razr, they only extend to essentially be no different from these candy bars that we have today. Okay, this is totally different. This is going out, making it a little bit larger. So solving a problem, this never was a problem. This form factor never was a problem. This is actually just presenting another case, if you will, in my opinion.
So this is more competing with the Samsung Galaxy Fold
it seems
and
to
the
be more
Huawei
of a
Mate
fold.
X,
Right.
in that space.
Right.
Maybe it's like those the old blinds. Like you only see them in cartoons now. Like when you pull it, and it goes back up.
That's the description, Mr. Victor.
Yes.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I wonder if this would be automated, like mechanical, or if you have to actually pull it, or if you push a button.
That means there's got to be some kind of
tension wheels,
like exactly in there.
Yeah, who the heck knows? But
and
it's
if they can add an operating system sort of sound effect to make that as it goes up, that would be good.
Yes, that would be nice. It also reminds me of some of the roll-down OLED TVs that we've been hearing about and seeing at CES.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It sort of reminded me of the
smaller
theaters,
scale. Yeah, totally. Very interesting. All right, so then maybe that's the next wave. But we have the foldables right now.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that we're learning is that if we didn't already know, they're very fragile.
Shocking.
So I've got two cases to point out here. Case one, Zach from the YouTube channel Jerry Rig Everything did a teardown of the Z Flip, the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip, and he actually did a couple of videos. The first video, I think he scratched on the top a layer and realized it was just as scratchable as the Galaxy Fold display and the Motorola Razr, leading him to, I believe, assume that there was no actual glass there, that it was plastic. And he ended up releasing a second video where he actually shows there is a glass layer. Samsung touted a thin glass layer. Basically what it is, it's like a plastic layer that's fused to the glass layer underneath. So on the second video, you can look it up. He shows like peeling away that plastic layer from the glass, and the glass starts to kind of crack in ways that glass would.
Mm-hmm.
You can run one of his tools over it, and it kind of has like a crackle thing. So there's definitely glass in there. Some people were freaking out thinking that Samsung was telling a lie, but there is glass in there. It's just incredibly thin, and I think it kind of makes sense. If it's really thin, it's going to be easy to damage. Therefore, they put the plastic on top, but that isn't very resistant to scratching in and of itself. So just not good if you want to keep that display in tip-top shape.
The problem I have with this particular channel is the practicality of it. There's no reason for someone's phone to get jagged scratches that you would get from a box cutter on your phone.
For sure. No question.
And I'm sure he's got some type of gain coming from this, but I never really get those videos. Even CNET's pushing the envelope a little bit with their foldable machine.
Yeah.
But if they were to slow it down a little bit, maybe that would be a little more practical and a little more real world. But some of these videos, I'm like, that's not really happening. I don't care how rough you are on your phone, but you're not going to be trying to etch your initials into your $1,500 phone.
I have to say, I have had the situation where I've put a phone in a bag, and a set of keys has been in the bag with the phone, and the screen has been quite badly scratched.
Oh, I have too.
That's scratched. this looked like he was trying to engrave his name on it.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I mean, obviously, it's a YouTube channel. He gets a lot. I mean, he's got a ton of subscribers.
Yeah.
A lot of it is kind of like this smartphone device torture porn sort of thing.
Okay.
On the other hand,
Nice
I actually do appreciate some of what he does, because what he does is he breaks down. He'll like break out a display in a somewhat of a grid and go from a soft scratch to a harder scratch. And in doing so, can kind of show you at what point that display is no longer like resistant to a certain material, which could be informative, right? Like, and I think what he's showing here is like even on the very, very soft materials that he uses to scratch these displays, they scratch, which basically tells you anything in this friggin' world is going to scratch
it's just gonna
these
scratch
displays.
it. Yeah.
So good to know if you're thinking about getting this display and you're prone to scratching your display in some way.
But
this
again,
might not be good for you.
Is that not a reasonable exception nowadays? And we don't have screens that are made of diamond or anything, so they're just gonna scratch, you know. So
They are, but at what point, right? Like some displays might not scratch when you have keys in your pocket. Others might.
I'd like to see those.
We had the dream. This was sapphire screens, so sapphire's not diamond, but pretty hard. And there were companies that were experimenting with making smartphone display covers in sapphire.
Yeah.
I believe Apple purchased one of them, and then
They did.
things didn't work out, and no one's spoken about it since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, there is other materials that can be used. Getting the cost down and being able to produce reliably in masses.
I believe I saw his Razr video. I didn't watch the Z Flip video, but I watched the Razr one, and I was like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. But carry on, you know.
It's his thing. He's certainly built a following out of it. So
I'm sorry, I'm just too not with it, apparently.
Well, it can be kind of painful to watch these like really great devices just get totally destroyed.
$1,500, just let me scratch it up.
It's
real
also
quick.
a great way to see how the product is built on the inside. Sometimes
true.
you look at it and you're in awe of how they've managed to technologically fit certain components.
And see,
in place.
saying that, Matteo, I think of iFixit and their teardowns.
Yeah.
That approach makes sense to me.
Yeah.
This torture stuff, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to bring down the AAA.
You're not bringing anything down. You're bringing your opinion, and that's what we want.
Well, also like for Samsung or Motorola, do you think they could have avoided a lot of these type of things if they would have made their own, like as part of their marketing, like part of their how we made this kind of
That
Like
would
make
help.
their own scratch test.
Throw it in the budget.
or like I don't know, I don't remember if it was like Apple that made like where they're actually showing them how they're building how putting this phone together was different from like, you know, a normal phone, I guess, you know.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, if Samsung had been, Samsung doubled down really, quite a bit in their announcement on the fact that this was a glass display.
Mm-hmm.
Leaving out the aspect that protecting the glass display is this very, easy to scratch plastic protective layer. Maybe if in their delivery they had rephrased it, not to say this is highly scratchable, but to say like we've got a thin, ultra glass display covered in a protective layer, or whatever. They could have delivered that a little differently. Mm-hmm. Instead, they set the expectation high with it's got a glass display. Everybody just kind of assumed, oh, well, that's what I'm looking at here. That's what that is. And it's not. I mean,
also they had a big issue with the follow-up to the crisis management. I think it was David Ruddock had a really good point on they should have had these scenarios clarified so that we had an answer as soon as the video came out. They didn't have a canned response.
Right.
They took quite a while to get back and clarify the situation, and it's still a bit murky at the moment.
it is, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of in flux.
That's unfortunate.
Well, you mentioned iFixit. They are case number 2 in the foldables are fragile chapter of this book. iFixit tore down the Motorola Razr, ultimately giving it a 1 out of 10 on repairability. Basically, they called it the most complicated phone-based contraption ever disassembled by iFixit. Tons of glue everywhere. They also kind of gave it also said there were booby traps, which were kind of areas where would-be repairers would be kind of like trying to pry something off, and in doing so, they'd sever a cable or whatever, like all throughout. But they kind of give it a little bit of a pass, just saying these forward-thinking, future-based devices, like they're going to be this initially, and then over time, as they get developed again and again, they learn these lessons. They learn how to do it in a way that's maybe a little bit more repairable, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it did not look like this was a phone that a novice, phone repairer could just like sit down and have some fun with. They're probably going to destroy it in the process.
I wouldn't try it.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't even let Mr. Burke try it.
I'd let him try it. I'd be curious to see what he come up with. I'd be curious to see how broken that phone is.
Exactly.
Anyways, all right. So there you go. That's hardware. Let's take a break and thank the sponsor of this show, and then we'll get into some apps news and the arena. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by LastPass. The global password security report recently came out and revealed, I think, some pretty interesting things about the trends of credential management, access, and authentication throughout businesses worldwide. Did you know that employees have been known to reuse a password 13 times on average? It's probably not just employees, it's probably just people in general. I think I've certainly gone through moments in my life where I had a lot of passwords that were the same amongst different sites. I've changed that, but it takes a little bit of time to kind of understand this for yourself. And employees, fall into that bucket. They're no different. 49% is the average security score of over 47,000 businesses already using LastPass. This means ongoing password reuse is hampering those scores. That score's lower than it could be. LastPass helps solve these access and authentication challenges for businesses through things like unified password management, single sign-on, and multi-factor authentication, all ways to improve your password health. You can manage password security with over 100 customizable policies. LastPass recently rolled out passwordless authentication options for employees, so you can actually log into your work without typing a password. Isn't that nice? They also offer a single sign-on portal with over 1,200 applications. Making sure that your employees are securely logging into different sites doesn't have to be painful. You can get the LastPass browser extension and start solving your access and authentication challenges today. LastPass really, when you look into them, you'll realize they go above and beyond to make sure that they're getting security for all of their users, which could be your users. If you're a business owner, those are your users too. Your data is encrypted and decrypted at the device level. Your data is kept secret, even from LastPass. They don't even know. Your master password and the keys used to encrypt and decrypt data are never sent to LastPass servers and are never accessible by LastPass, so you don't even have to worry about it. As a gold standard, they engage trusted, world-class third-party security firms to conduct routine audits and testing of their service and infrastructure. We, of course, use LastPass Enterprise here at Twit. We love it. I've been using LastPass for years, and so it made perfect sense to go from a personal user to a business user. Now we've got it all tied up in one neat package, and it just makes, when we need to share credentials for this or that, it just makes it so much easier to have it integrated here at Twit.
Even my hardheads can use LastPass.
Excellent.
It's that easy.
Right on. You need LastPass for you and your business with their amazing features that will improve security across your company and make life easier for your users. Visit lastpass.com/twit. You can find out how they can help you. That's lastpass.com/twit. We thank LastPass for their support of All About Android and the studio that we are in right now. All right, and let's talk about some app news real quick before we get to the arena. Oh, sorry. Did I throw too fast? Sorry about that. I was like, oh, here we are. Sorry about that, Victor.
No, it was just, it's a
thing.
It's a setup thing here.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Caught Victor flat-footed, and I apologize. Last year, Google acquired Socratic. Did you ever hear of this app? I was completely unaware of this.
Maybe because I never did my homework.
You didn't do your homework. Yes, exactly. When's the last time we did homework, and when was it assisted by artificial intelligence? Never for me. I don't know about anyone else sitting at this table. So Socratic is basically, it's a homework helping app that apparently Google acquired last year. It originally launched in 2017 to help students with their homework. Is it helping students with their homework or showing students how to, like, the answer? Like, what is the line that you cross between helping them find the answer or understand the answer versus just doing the work for you? Yes, exactly. Just doing the work for you. The developers back then, when the announcement of the acquisition happened, had announced that an AI-infused revamp was coming soon. Apparently, it took a little bit longer than they anticipated, but the update finally hit the Play Store last week. And I was thinking, let's see here. I'm going to pull up a little thing with some math problems here. So let me load up this app. Where is it? So Socratic. All right, so this is a Socratic app. You can see it's got the pass-through camera. I'm going to unplug my laptop here. There's one question that seems to like stump the internet. I don't know if you remember this happening a while back. This problem, which apparently you can have one of two answers for. I'm really curious to know what Socratic comes up with. Is 6 divided by 2 parens 1 plus 2 parens equals. So I'm going to go ahead and hold this up, and we'll go ahead and take a picture of it. Let's see here. It picked out some text on the page, and it didn't pick out the... Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just draw it myself. Let's see here.
I think I know the answer, but let's see.
So Socratic believes that the answer to this question is 1. Apparently, that is not the actual answer to this question. There are two different. This is like
I was taught the way. Okay, I see what it says here.
I feel like this is the answer I would have come up with. It was 1 for this.
That's how we were taught.
Apparently, the correct answer is 9 now. There's a little bit of a controversy around how you do a question like this. So I would say Socratic failed this test.
Yes.
If this had been, a student's homework, it would have advised the student to do it incorrectly.
Then again, that, as Ant was saying, this is how you were taught to do mathematics. Again, would Socratic correct spelling for aluminium or aluminum? It's a question. This is, I think, a bit of a methodology thing. Is the way that there's an agreed way of handling this.
Just like any other AI, who's teaching it? Who's
exactly. So in this case, I think that's an interesting one.
Let's see. So I'm going to take a picture of aluminum or aluminium.
Aluminium.
Okay, so have I spelled it correctly here? I did a search on Google. Is that right? That looking right? Let's go. Analyzing problem. I don't know. Maybe it top match. Okay, so it says aluminium is a chemical element. The symbol for... Yeah, I don't think that it's really... has anything about the spelling of it or the pronunciation.
What was the actual spelling of it at the top in the example provided?
Aluminium.
So with an I.
Yes.
So the Queen's English wins here.
Apparently so. Although if I put in my search,
this is why I like history.
Aluminum.
It doesn't change much.
Here. Yeah. So when I do a Google search for aluminum, it corrects it to aluminium or aluminium. So you're right. You're right.
The Queen's English, he says.
Good one. All right. So maybe that'll help you do your homework. Maybe it won't. I'm not really quite convinced whether that AI is working well or not. But
let's confuse everyone.
I better not see it on my hardhead's phone. I know that. Jeez.
All right, Ant. Were you an inbox user?
Well, I use Inbox for I did it for a couple of weeks, and
you were a tester.
I remember a lot of people just being so thrilled about that service and everything it offered, far as being down to Inbox Zero. You were a big proponent of Inbox Zero, preaching to me before I even came to Twit.
Well, then I was preaching without much to back it up. I could never truly stay at Inbox Zero, but I love Inbox.
Yeah, and a lot of people enjoyed that service, and I just didn't quite get it. And apparently Google said, we're going to cut it because that's what we do. We kill apps. Now, with this, when you look at the latest version of the, what was it?
Gmail,
the Gmail APK. I could think of the Gmail APK. Looks like a lot of those features from Inbox are now making their way back into Gmail, and hopefully it's going to please a lot of you former Inbox users. I personally don't care for all of that stuff, but hey, at least we're giving people what they want, more options.
I felt like the bundles were one of the best parts of Inbox. Because it in an automated way, it could take these emails coming in and know, that probably goes in the travel bucket, or that probably goes in your promos or whatever. And then I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to look at it if I don't want to.
And that's great. That's great. But if you're someone like me, I laugh when people look at me and I say, yeah, shoot me an email. And they're like, do what? What's an email? Because it seems like nobody uses email at a certain age group, if you will.
Yeah.
And so I depend on email a lot, and I like to go through and manually do my filing and deleting myself. So Inbox never really stuck with me because I was a control freak and wanted to manage my inbox myself and not let Google do it the way they saw fit. But yeah, to each his own. This is something that people tend to just have a huge fandom for, but I'm not one of them. It's good on
one of the things that I really liked about it was if I got an email from a certain person, let's say that person in my organizational approach belongs to a certain label or a certain folder or whatever. If I dragged that email to that folder, then it would say, do you want to do this for everything that comes in for that person? Be like, yes, I do actually. I want all the emails from that person to go over there. And in Gmail, you have to go through the whole
filters,
create a filter process and do it all manually. And I mean, you can, but it was just what I realized in my day-to-day is that when emails are coming in and I'm just doing this on the fly the way I would normally organize instead of having to switch modes and go into creating an actual filter for it, it's just things got organized a lot quicker over time. It became much easier to keep things organized in that way as opposed to having to think about creating this rule around it.
Yeah.
So I hope that makes it into Gmail. Were you an Inbox user? I'm sure we've talked about it on the show.
I was, but I always defaulted back to Gmail and did think to myself, I'm a bit like Ant. I'm an older person.
Right. I'm alone on an island.
Get off my inbox alone.
Maybe this means we'll have the best of all worlds. Were either of you players of HQ Trivia?
I played it for a little while.
Did you?
I did.
Did you ever win anything?
Never.
But
it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun, other than the pre-roll.
The pre-roll, what do you mean?
They had these long pre-rolls before the game started that talked about this show is coming up on 2 weeks. Make sure you're ready to play on this day because in 2 weeks we're going to talk about this. And it would go on and on and on for several minutes.
Get to the good stuff.
And but all they're doing is just mining for data and ads while you're waiting around.
Getting more and more people to connect. And
that's all they were doing. But it was fun to play, the trivia standpoint of it because I like trivia.
Yeah. What about you? Did you ever play it? I never played it. I never played it once.
I never played it once. I know Candice, my partner, she used to play it. She used to find it fun and challenging.
Yeah.
But then she got bored after a while. So that may have been part of their downfall.
Yeah, I mean, she's not alone. I think maybe that happened, right? It had its pinnacle, but then apparently last week they're shuttering the company. They had their last day where they gave away a pot of $5. So that was their last winnings that they were distributed.
Wow.
The host, I can't remember his name, but they were getting drunk. So
they had several hosts on there. They had several different hosts.
Well, I never understood their business model. They were giving away money, but how were they monetizing the data? That was the challenging thing. And how did that work in countries like that have GDPR? How does that work with new Californian privacy laws? That was quite an interesting thing to look at from the outside.
Yeah.
Without actually having played the game, it was the fundamental business model. How did that work?
Totally. And how sustainable is it? 2 years later, basically created. Let's see here. Yeah, 2.5 years. And now it's gone. However, it seems like there's some sort of like something happening behind the scenes. They had funding. The people who were funding it before decided they couldn't carry on. They had a possible acquisition in place. It didn't happen. They said they were shutting the doors. And then starting, I believe, yesterday and now today, the CEO has been tweeting out that they may have found a new home for HQ, that there's an actual company that wants to keep it running, although there would be changes and everything. So if you're a fan of the app, it might not be going away for good. Who knows what this is leading up to.
But isn't this the sign of all viral apps? It's all about timing, and you better ride that wave as long as you can, because it can
they had a wave.
Totally go away as quick as it popped up.
Yeah, there's no question there was a wave here. At the peak, what was it? 15 million all-time installs, 2 million in February 2018 alone. At its height, it was attracting 2.3 million live viewers, at a time. Which is crazy.
I look at this particular game and I wonder about what are the other games out there that people are still playing today, because you still had Flappy Birds, you had Words with Friends, and they all just sort of come and go. Is there a game you all are playing right now that you played last year?
Other than
Probably
Goat Simulator.
Not. Other than Goat Simulator, other than Pokemon Go.
Okay, so Pokemon Go, that's something that's strong and has staying power.
I'm now probably showing my age. Threes.
Yeah.
Threes.
You still play Threes?
I still play. I have purchased it on multiple platforms and still play it everywhere.
Okay.
It's one of those puzzle games that is...
I love Threes. I don't play it now, but I remember playing it quite a bit.
You can pick it up standing in the queue, waiting to board a plane, play a few moves, put it down, pick it up the week after. It's constantly entertaining and constantly a challenge.
Right.
So that's one example. But then Pokemon Go, they've evolved the game. It's added new Pokemon. It's added new features. It's more than it used to be.
So I remember Angry Birds sort of doing the same thing. It just sort of changed the way it did levels. And then I think Star Wars, was that the first big change that they had?
Oh, they had some Angry Birds Star Wars combination thing. Yep.
So
that's right.
They knew, okay, our time is very limited. We better do something.
Yeah, now they're movies and everything.
Right.
Skyforce for me. Skyforce
Skyforce
Reloaded. I love that game. I can still go back to it and still open it up every once in a while and play it. And I have a lot of fun with that
one more. I think it's the Star Trek Fleets game.
The VR game?
No, it's just essentially a SimCity clone.
Oh, nice.
With Star Trek Fleet Command. That's one that I've been playing for a couple of years now.
Nice.
It's good fun.
Okay.
So you have to build up your fleets, your base, and then play with other players. That's one that I've been playing for multiple years.
But another variable is I just asked two, elite Android users.
True.
What happens when I go to downtown Petaluma and just ask someone random, hey, what's the game that you're playing now that you played last year?
Bejeweled and
is it Candy Crush?
Yeah. Right.
Candy
Are
Crush.
any of those still sticking around? And what is their secret sauce that keeps them sticking around?
Then again, if you go to the park and ask the same people in the park what they were playing, it's probably Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
true.
Depending on where you go. Yep.
Sure.
Yep. Very, very true. Good question. That's an interesting topic, because we talk about a lot of different things, but how long are people sticking with them, especially with games and stuff? And I would imagine certain types of games get that just because they're designed to keep you coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we are going to jump into the arena.
Ooh.
This is an excellent intro to the arena.
Whoa, wait a minute.
Wow.
They went from 2 to 3. How did that happen?
So many enter.
That's crazy.
The camera shake brought 3 from 2.
Apparently so. I don't know how, but they're duplicating. Last week's
editing magic.
Yes, well, whoever did that, which it was you, deserves a raise. Last week's poll, episode 459, favorite apps, and it appears that Flo's Sleep Sounds app wins at 66%. Second place, My News app at 17%, and Ron's Scroll app. Was it? Yeah, it was Ron, right? Or who was it? No. Let's see here. Sorry, it was Ryan. It was me, Flo, and Ryan.
I think
so
I
it was
voted
Ryan.
for
So it was
News.
Team Guest at 15%.
All the best to Flo. I think she might actually be needing some sleep sounds over the next few months.
Yes, indeed. And, she's stockpiled some wins here. So Flo's looking good. Thanks to Wade County in the chat room for the results through week 6. Flo is at 23. Guests are at 15. I have overtaken Ron. I'm at 13, and Ron is at 12. And, I think this is going to be interesting because there's going to be a little bit of a time where Flo is not here. You're cycling in because you are
I'm not
replacement
guest
for
anymore.
Flo. Right, exactly. You're going to be your own line item.
Yes.
And then, of
I'm
course, you're
official.
always Team GG and G.
Yes.
So
Still holding that team going.
still holding
So
on to that.
We actually had some questions about that on social media, usually on Twitter. What does GG&G stand for? So this is something that we came up with not long after Gina left All About Android. So it's Team Guests, Goats, and Gina.
There we go. Yes. It's been a while since Gina has participated in the arena, but I'm still holding out hope that it might one day happen again. All right, so let's see here. Everything's so upside down. I don't know who should go first. Let's just go in the order in the doc. I'll just go real quick here and get mine out of the way, and then you, Ant, and then Matteo.
Roger that.
So my app. All right. So my app is called Beta Maniac: Life of a Beta Tester. It sounds like it's a game. And in the game of life, maybe it is, but it's actually not. So this is a utility that once you launch it and you log into your Google account, it pulls up the apps that you have installed on your phones. These are all the apps that I have installed on my phone, so many of them. Oh my goodness, when it's broken down like that, it really seems like I have tons installed.
Holy moly, dude.
And what this shows you, this is for the people who like to live on the edge. If you like to live on the edge and use beta versions of apps, this is a good way an easy way to scan the apps that you already have installed and see whether they offer a beta and whether you belong to that beta track or not. So you can see there is a beta offered for Airbnb. I can go into that and it'll pull up some information, and I can, down at the bottom, click to become a tester. And boom, welcome to the testing program. You are now a tester. I am now part of the Airbnb beta test track, which I, to be quite honest, don't really care a whole lot about. But there might be other apps in here that I want to sign up for the beta to be involved in. And this is just an easy way to do that, right? Apparently I'm on the beta list for Craigslist, not for Converse Story. That's an app for another day. DoorDash, no. What am I? Files. I'm on the beta track for Files. For Google, of course. I've always been on the beta track for Google as long as they have offered that. But not for Google Play Services. Maybe I should do that. Or will that break my phone? I doubt it. I don't know. But hey, I like living on the edge.
Yep.
It does warn you testing versions may be unstable, so keep that in mind. I don't care. I'm on the beta track for Google Play Services now, and I love it. And I only know this because of Beta Maniac. So I can do a refresh here, and it'll refresh all the apps that I have installed and assigned to my account, and I can go from there. But kind of neat. And 10,000 downloads is not a hugely well-known app, I'd say at this point. Mirko DiMartino is the developer in the Play Store, so do a search for Beta Maniac, and you too can manage all of your betas.
Well, beta testers are pretty niche anyway, so.
That's true. So I've got a dark theme. See, I hadn't even checked this stuff out. You can have it so that it filters out any apps with no beta program, so your list isn't just filled with a bunch of apps that you can't do anything with. You can also set up an auto scan if that's important to you. But it's free, and you should check it out. It's called Beta Maniac. Live life on the edge with Beta Maniac.
That's a really useful app. I've just discovered that I must have signed up for the Facebook beta at some point.
Son of a-
Maybe that's why the app's so terrible.
Maybe. You never know. It could be. All right. Ant, you're up next.
All right. Well, of course, I want to look at something photography related, but no, it's not in the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite. This time, this is a free app called PhotoMate. It listed as R3, and I guess that stands for Revision 3. But it's PhotoMate, and it's a photo editor that goes beyond your typical native photo editor in Android. It's going to give you a lot more tools and items to play with, as if you were using something like an Adobe Lightroom. And I'm going to show it here as best I can on camera. What really got my attention with this is if you look at the very top at that file name, how's my angle? I think that's good enough. That file name is a .cr2. That is a raw file from my DSLR, but yet it is on my phone. I was able to download it from my, cloud storage or what have you, and bring it into my phone and do post-processing on this, just as if I were sitting inside of Lightroom Mobile or anything like that, and I didn't have to pay for anything. And you get all of these additional tools beyond the basics of updating exposure and contrast and things like that. You're going to get a few ads in there here and there, but for the most part, it's not that bad.
Just checking your reflection.
But if you want to go, beyond the basic setup there, you can jump into some, a little more granular setup as far as looking at sharpening details. I'm serious. This is just like going through Lightroom or even to a certain extent Photoshop, because you have a curves adjustment layer in here. Dang it, I cannot keep it.
No, it's a minefield of studio lights. It's hard to avoid.
But you can even have this curves adjustment that you would find in, say, Photoshop, where you can really fine tune the different channels, the RGB channels of your image, to make it stand out however you see fit, like so. Now, wow. Granted, I just made this really, really wonky, but at the top, you see you have the different channels, RGB. If I only want to change the blue channel, it will give me that blue curves adjustment layer to adjust. If I only want to do the red, because the red is so out of whack now, I could try to bring those down.
I don't know. It's kind of moody. I like it.
Don't judge me on this post-processing, folks.
It's got a nice vibe to it.
But this is it. I'm really impressed. I've only had it a little over a week or so, just playing around with it, and it really got me because it was free. To have all of these tools in it, you typically expect to pay a few bucks for that and support your devs. But that's one of my raw images that Mr. Victor is showing on the screen before post-processing. And back to my phone is what it looks like right now, which doesn't look very good. But it just lets you know you can play around, and I could probably delete some of these curves too. Let's just do that.
That reminds me of the sky in Highlander 2 or 3.
There we go. So now we're getting back to normal just a little bit.
It was reminding me of the elevator in The Shining.
But it's
full of blood.
Lots and lots of fun. You can even get into noise reduction and things like that on a phone. And if you've ever done noise reduction on a computer, you know that it could be pretty processor intensive.
Yeah.
And it handles this without a hitch. Of course, this Pixel 4 XL has some pretty nice hardware, so it's going to just breeze right through it. So again, that's PhotoMate R3 for free, and vote for it because it's the best one in here. I'm telling you that right now.
Nice. Nice. It's PhotoMate R3. PhotoMate R3 is the app. All right, Matteo, what did you bring? What did you do?
What expectations did you have?
Weasels.
Weasels. Well, close.
Pigs.
Nope.
Okay. Dinosaurs.
Nope.
Okay. Well, I have no idea. I'm stumped.
So I have brought a game called Goat's Battle.
Oh, boy.
So I have to thank, I believe it's Jason Murray from Ostroid for pointing out this game's release to me. Unlike Jason's app, this does not have beta in the name, it's alpha.
Oh, gosh.
So this is an alpha release of Goats Battle, and it's a game based on Unity. And the idea is that it's a platform battle game.
Okay.
And at the moment, they're training the system, training the AI. Not only that, they are preparing the game for multiplayer, massive online multiplayer gaming as well. So this game is quite fun. It has a storyline in the background with comic strips, animated comic strips.
Okay.
And this is an evil farmer taking a female goat for milk production, and our hero saying, "Anna, no!" And he busts out of his pen, and he's going to save his friend Anna. So this is a multi-level platform game.
It's probably pretty deep.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like Double Dragon with goats.
Man.
If anyone remembers the game Double Dragon. So you move around not just in the platform, but in depth.
Oh,
it's
man,
a bit janky at the moment, but we'll forgive them because it is, after all, an alpha game.
That's
Ironic,
some fast action right there.
Ironically, it does work better on the Oppo Reno 2. I should probably fire that up. Yes, this
Compared
is not.
to what are you playing on right now?
I'm playing on the Google Pixel 4 XL, but
you'd think
it
that
is
the Pixel
actually
4
struggling.
would. Okay, you play on that one. I'll go ahead and play it over here and see if I can.
Yes, I'll fire up Goat's Battle here.
I don't want to fall in that.
Hey, at least it's
I
a
fell.
crispy, beautiful display, but yeah, that's pretty
It is
janky
crispy.
right now.
So that's really
It's a
interesting
little-
that the Snapdragon chipset on the Pixel 4 XL was struggling with the game.
Big
As I
time.
said at the beginning, this is based on Unity, whereas here I'm playing on the Huawei P30 Pro, which is the Kirin chipset. Let's see if it's any better. Oh, no. It's struggling as well.
It has great ambitions.
It has great ambitions, but the idea is that you're fighting.
Thank you, Mr. Victor.
It really wants to be fast.
But it's still an alpha, so we'll forgive them.
Okay, we'll forgive them a little bit.
And you have to proceed through the levels and kill the bandits
Eventually.
And as I said, it really does have that Double Dragon feel from the late 80s, early 90s.
Double Dragon was awesome.
I think what it's doing, it's a game where it actually slows down time, so you have a lot of time to think about your moves.
Although it does a thing like the Ninja Turtles game where they throw the bad guy at the screen.
At you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So
It does look hyper realistic.
I have to say, this is not a very pleasant gaming experience. What you're doing here is supporting the dev by giving them some feedback as you can,
That's
and
fair.
allowing them to collect the data to improve this game. And
That's
it does
fair.
say it in the name. This is an alpha game.
Okay.
And I have high hopes for it. We thought we had run out of Goat games to play. Sadly, for Ron, this is not the case. This is another Goat.
yet.
It's not over yet. We have another Goat game on the way. And this is an early alpha, but the idea is that with the multiplayer mode, you'll be able to race your friends from beginning to end of the levels with your favorite goat.
Galloping goats.
And if, for example, the Mario games have Princess Peaches, Goat's Battle has Anna, a goat that was taken away from the pen.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
this terrible game in its current state is my pick for the Android App Arena. It's Goat's Battle. Needless to say, if you vote for Goat's Battle in the App Arena, you're voting for Team GG&G and supporting a developer who's building a new game based on the Unity engine.
Okay. It is worth noting that the video on the Play Store also shows another game mode, which is like an endless runner mode.
Yes, I haven't found that as of yet.
Yes, I'm not surprised.
Wait a minute. That goat had that guy hemmed up.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So the rating for this game, I believe, is open.
See, endless runner. Huh?
Wow.
Huh? Yeah. This is
But
what
it-
it looks like in full speed.
That's probably running on a gaming PC with bright
See,
LEDs.
Endless
Okay,
Runner.
I have not seen this version of Goat's Battle.
You've got a lot to look forward to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a separate game, so another entry in the arena. But for now, Goat's Battle. I
Goat's
managed
Battle.
to go back on brand this episode.
Well done, sir.
Goat's Battle, open alpha. Talk about living on the edge. There's a game for you. Twit.to/AAA poll 460 is where you can go to place your vote for your favorite app this week. Is it Beta Maniac, Photomate R3, or Goat's Battle? That's twit.to/AAA poll 460. And Victor's
My man.
circling.
My man.
And Photomate R3 gets Victor's vote.
We
Well
know
done.
this.
We'll see what else we learn in a week's time. That is it for this supersized episode of All About Android. Almost 2 hours. But you know what? That's just how we roll.
Yes.
On some Tuesdays like today.
Do we roll like those TCL phones?
A little bit. Yeah, possibly. If we did, then we'd know how they work.
Tension wheel.
That's important information. Matteo Doni, always great to get you in the studio. Thank you so much for stopping by and showing off all your hardware and your GOAT game. We can always rely on a GOAT
Thank
game
you.
coming from you.
He actually
Thanks
showed
for
a
having
game.
Yeah, right. Well, showing us a couple of frames from your GOAT game. What do you want people to know?
You can follow the Tech Travel Geeks on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel where we review smartphones like the Oppo Reno 2, the Honor 9X. We also have a website, techtravelgeeks.com, where not only do we have a collection of our videos from the YouTube channel, but you can also see our written reviews. And we have quite a good group of writers now. My former colleague and friend Alana Harris has recently joined us and written review of a few airport lounges and her list of gadgets that she takes with her on travel. Our
Good stuff.
resident and anaesthetist, he's actually a consultant anaesthetist, Majid, has written the review of the Xiaomi Redmi Note 8T, which we released recently. It has a really good explanation of his business needs or his real needs that brought him to choose that device. Working for the NHS on a limited budget. It was very interesting insight into his needs and how he satisfied those with his smartphone purchase. Follow us on Tech Travel Geeks on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Nice. YouTube.com/techtravelgeeks will take you right to all the videos that you have been producing, including your fully produced review of the Oppo Reno or Reno 2. Why am I saying Reno? Like renovate? The Oppo Renovate.
Oh yes, and the 5G video. Let's not forget that wonderful
Yes.
musical masterpiece.
There you go.
That was
There
cool.
they are. There they are. Thank you again, Matteo. And what about you, Ant?
Well,
What you got going on right now?
Well, right now I have, let's see, This Week in Google going on
Yep.
tomorrow. With
Oh, yeah.
Somebody named Jason Howell.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Looking forward to it.
And then there's hands-on photography. That is twit.tv/hop. Check that out each and every Thursday as we go through different tips and tricks to help make you a better photographer. I do a little bit of post-processing of my own stuff, a little bit of post-processing of some listener and viewer submitted images too. Have a lot of fun with that. And sometimes I can overdo it. I'm trying to work on that because, I get a little long-winded at times. I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all excellent detail. I mean, that's why people want to follow the how-tos, right? To know all.
I
the
hope
detail.
so.
I certainly hope so.
I love Ant's show. I was actually watching it whilst traveling on a phone. It's hands-on photography is a great show.
Thank
Nice.
you, brother. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Twit.tv/HOP. And thank you, Victor, by the way. Thanks for hopping in today.
Oh, no problem.
Always appreciate your presence.
Even though Ron's not here to scowl.
Yeah, well,
It's still a fun show.
Believe me, he's scowling. He's just not scowling at you directly. You mentioned hands-on photography.
Mm-hmm.
I should mention that I'm launching a hands-on show.
And what is that show called?
It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to people who watch this show, but it's called Hands on Android. Yeah, it's
No, it really
so
would
Android
make a
is
lot of
this. It's a
sense.
mobile phone operating system, and there's like lots of smartphones running Android. And so then I have a show called Hands on Android, which is like a tips and tricks and how tos and deep dives and sort of thing on a single topic, short form. But you know, I mean, I don't know if this is like the same. I don't know if people watching this show would know what an Android is.
No.
So
Well, fortunately, you can help them out with Hands on Android, right?
I will certainly do my best. Twit.tv/HOA. New episodes every Thursday. And actually, episode 1 starts this Thursday.
Boom.
So go to twit.tv/HOA, subscribe there, and then you won't miss the first episode this Thursday.
I'm lucky enough to have had a preview, and
You got a sneak preview of it.
I'm really quite excited about this other show as well.
Thank you, Matteo.
So it's not about getting around the homeowners association.
No, it has nothing. It has nothing to do with real estate. You won't find the Oppo Reno on that real estate show either.
Reno.
But yeah, twit.tv/HOA. A few other things to mention here. We've got the RSA security conference coming up here in San Francisco, and Twit's actually going to be there for a party. We've got the LastPass after hours party at Bourbon and Branch Speakeasy on February 26th at 7 p.m. So if you happen to be coming to town for RSA, you should definitely check this out. You do need a secret password. It's that kind of party, so you're going to want to RSVP if you want to go to this. twit.to/RSA LastPass20. That's twit.to/RSA LastPass20. You'll get the secret password, and this is February 26th, 7 p.m. I'm going to be there. Are you going to be there?
I will be there. There's bourbon.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's there in the name. Last year I was there, and I was on a dietary cleanse, which meant I wasn't drinking alcohol at the time.
Bless your heart.
So I had to be surrounded by all this deliciousness, and I could not partake. I still had a blast, but I plan to have more of a blast this time.
I'm looking forward to it.
Looking forward to that.
Hope we see a lot of you folks out there.
That's right. We hope to see you all out there. Also, the survey, the audience survey is rounding out. I think tomorrow might be the last day for this.
That's correct.
So twit.to/survey20. You can let us know what you think about what we're doing right, what you wish we were doing better, all that information. We don't track you or anything like that. So just go there. Give us your feedback. Tomorrow, Wednesday, is the last day for this. So twit.to/survey20. So as to try and make this show not any longer than it already is. That's it for this week. Twit.tv/AAA for everything you need to know all about Android. All the details are there. Make sure you subscribe if you aren't already. And that's all I'm going to leave you with. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. We'll see you next week on All About Android. Bye, everybody.